Hello everybody, how are you doing today? Glowplasma231 here today to talk about World Trigger, chapter number 235. This chapter is titled, The Away Mission Test, Part 32. We are 32 parts into the Away Mission Test, and I really don't think we're going to stop anytime soon. I mean, we've been here for 32 chapters, and really, whenever we think about it, only like 5 days have passed. Not really that much time, but getting past the chapter title, this is a very interesting chapter of World Trigger because it's a chapter in which we only have one this month, being this chapter came out here in July of 2023. We didn't get two like we got last month in June. So that's one thing to note. But another thing to note is there's a shockingly big revelation here at the big end of the chapter, and just to spoil it sort of now, I mean, I'm guessing if you've watched this video, you know what's happening, but somebody else is learning about what is happening in the neighborhood with some of the people who've been kidnapped, and one character that we're almost building him up to definitely be going on the away mission for sure. So that's just a very interesting thing to note. And I mean, the World Trigger space is very interesting right now. I mean, we're now 235 chapters in, still in this away mission test, and to be honest, it feels like this sit down, not away mission part, the sealed environment test, I think is what they're calling it. It seems like it could actually be wrapping up pretty soon. But to actually get into the chapter itself, I want to talk about what happened last time. Before we do that, I just want to say that I've got some other World Trigger videos on the channel, so if you enjoy me talking about World Trigger, I think I put up a video that was a little shy of an hour last month about the past two chapters, so that's just something cool to note there. But what ended up happening last chapter was we had a whole bunch of stuff about, we had one chapter mainly resolving the whole Emma and everything going on in Ninomiya squad, pretty much where Chica wasn't feeling too good about herself, and we pretty much had something where all of that sort of got fixed. And then our secondary chapter was all about the A ranks in Border, pretty much talking about everything going on with the B rank squads in the test. And along with that, we had all the upper management of Border talking about all of that stuff too. So that's pretty interesting to note. But here we come in, and we saw at the end of last chapter, both Suwa and Murakami had both gotten all of the squad detailings at the end of the day, and they were sort of just going to each of themselves like, oh, what's this? And we actually start off this chapter with Suwa Squad 7, as we see all of the characters in there is Suwa at being the commander and everything's just like, hey, heads up gang, we got our scores for day 4, and everybody's like, okay, what are they? And we see that the current rankings for everything shows Suwa Squad is in 3rd place. They have 7,190 points, which is about 1,300 points shy from 1st place, which is Mizukami Squad 9, of course. And then we also just see a few other notable squad rankings. Kodera Squad is at place 2. Ninomiya Squad is at place 5. Utagawa Squad is at place 8, because of course Utagawa Squad has Yuma on it and also Urashima on it, which I'm a little surprised we haven't gotten more of Urashima, but I'm guessing we'll probably get a lot with Urashima during the actual combatant phase, where it's like the 3 days guerrilla fighting sort of deal. And then we see Wakamura Squad 11 is in 11th place, 11-11, haha, with just shy of 5,800 points. So that's how all the scores are looking up, right? And we see everybody's going on here, and Katori's just like, man, we're in 3rd overall, and Yui makes just a short note of, yeah, that's not bad considering where we were. And Suwa sort of makes a note of, and check out the next page, as we see that Suwa Squad 7, for just the one day, it's actually 320, it's the last day of the battle sims, as we know. They actually placed 1st overall for the entire squad day rankings with a little bit over 2,400 points. And just to read through those, Wakamura Squad is actually in 9th place, so not dead last, which is a very interesting thing, which actually gets brought up on the next page, but we'll get there whenever we get there. And we also see that Mizukami's squad is in 11th place. So, as we all know, how they did today, yeah, they're in last place. Let's see, where is Utagawa squad? Utagawa squad is at 4. And, of course, Kodera squad is, if I could read, there are too many names. Kodera is in 6th place, but I'm pretty sure these are all of the rankings that we got last time, so we already knew this. And all of Sua's squad just makes a note of, man, we're in the top. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. It's credible, right? And I like Sua. He's like, hey, everybody, let's get a big picture. I mean, we're the big winners today. And OG's like, man, that feels good. And just everybody else, I love Korok's like, hell yeah, we did it. So it's just a really fun note. But Osamu's sitting here, and he's just like, it looks like Ninomiya and Mizukami squad really struggled today. And Suas is like, well, maybe that's thanks to that wide net that was cast by Kodera yesterday. And Kotora's like, you mean that trap idea that you gave him the idea for? And they're also talking about that. But Osamu's like, hey, can we take a look at the battle sim scores too, right? And Oji's like, yeah, I'm curious. But we actually don't get to see that happen, because at this point, we cut over to Wakamura's squad 11. As we see the operator sitting here, let me open up my note page. Who is it? I forget the name. Mori Hasori. So, Hasori is here, and she's like, oh man, what do you know? We ain't in dead last today. I told you it was going to come up, right? And you also see here, Sasamori's is like, man, you're right. Ninomiya and Mizukami somehow wound up even lower than we were. And Hanazaki is like, man, a long way to fall after flying so high for both of them. It's like, what happened to both of them? But Husei is here, and Husei is just like, well, their victories over the past few days have left them particularly open to counters during the battle sims. And again, Sasamori's is like, yeah, especially with all of the data on everybody's units that's been floating around and being shared and everything. And Hanazaki brings up an interesting point of, but they still did better than them in the battles, so why were their overall scores so low? And of course, you know, that is all due to the inner conflict in both of the squads that has been going on here. And Hisori's is like, well, remember that trick we picked up from Sua's gang? I mean, that netted us a clean 200 points, and they're like the one of the video exercises that we obviously saw here a few days ago. But Hisori continues just going, plus, since the delegated assignments are tougher than the universal ones, they couldn't keep earning points at that lightning pace. Because if everybody does all the universal assignments, whenever we get to the delegated assignments, they do take more time. And the universal ones, everybody can sort of cheat off of. So whenever it comes to delegated, it is much, much harder. And Sasamori is like, yeah, I think Mizukami squad actually finished their universal problems altogether, meaning that they are on the delegated ones. Again, meaning that, yeah, it's going to take them longer. Hanazaki's just like, so, did that mean that we ate the dust in the homework department? That sucks. And Hisori's like, well, we've only got a little chunk of the universal stuff left. So, she's just like, well, let's be glad that we're not feeding on the bottom today. As Wakamura finally speaks up and is like, hey, that's right. Even if all those factors affected everyone else, we're in a better spot than we were yesterday. And he's like, you know what? We'll do even better tomorrow. And everybody's like, sounds good, sure thing. And like Hughes, he's like, okay. This is not even seeming to care, but I don't like Wakamura's mindset here. We're doing better than we were doing yesterday, so I feel like we're going to be doing better overall. At this point, we cut over to Kakizaki Squad 3. As we see Taichi's here with his stupid hat on, and he's just on the table, and he's like, that's it, I'm done, it's all over, I don't even want to do this anymore, right? And he's just like talking to himself and complaining, like, we're in second to last place thanks to me, I might as well jump off a bridge to pay for my failure. As we see the operator here, No, and she's just like, hey, quit talking nonsense, Taichi. But Taichi's just like, and no special assignment today either, the upper brass must hate my stupid guts. As Kakizaki's is like, hey, hang on now, Taichi. A special surprise assignment would have been bad news for us since we needed all hands on decks for the battle sim units. And Kagiura now speaks up and just like, hey, listen, it ain't your fault, Taichi. I've been holding us back for all of the homework stuff, and the battle sim scores ain't too bad at all. And Kagiura actually gets up and he apologizes to Kakizaki and be like, hey, my bad, Zaki. As Kakizaki very fairly is like, hey, I can't have you both down in dumps. We did better than we did yesterday. And like I said, today we got here, I chose this lineup with my sets on the upcoming battle phase, which again is that 3-day sort of guerrilla-style tactics battle thing, not the online battle sims. And he's just like, I never demanded perfection from all of you guys for this work. And Kakariko's like, well, yeah, even so. And Taiki's just even more just being depressed since he was obviously the last pick for all of this. He's like, none of that applies to me since I actually wasn't chosen for the team. And he's just even more depressed. And Kakizaki's like, hey, look, you're fine. You're our ideas man, Taiki. So I bet this is your time to shine come. Anyway, that's what Kuruma told me. So, yep, that's some stuff that Taiki, I don't care about Taiki that much, so I'm not really too into this part. But Taiki's just like, man, Kuruma's too nice of a guy. As No, the operator, comes up behind him and just like, hey, you just gotta take Kuru's expectations and turn them into reality yourself. Sort of just picking his face up, just like, come on, you can do it. And then Inukai, the other guy on the team from Ninomiya's squad, starts to speak up, and he's just like, hey, there's no sense in going all nuts out at this point. Leave the more cerebral attacks to me and make up to doing real battles, okay? As he looks over to Kagiura, and Kagiura just sort of takes note and just growls at him menacingly, being how Kagiura normally does. He's just like, are you calling me a dumbass or what? And Inukai's just like, no, I'm in it in good faith. My kind intentions are not coming across, are they? As Kagiura's just like, oh gosh. He's like, I just don't know if I can keep skating by with just my combat skills alone. As everybody sort of takes note of this, and at the end, Kakizaki's just like, anyhow, let's enjoy this break. We didn't do terrible today. We didn't do great, so let's just take a break. He's like, we were going hard at it all day, so we did what we did. As you know, this is like, I'm about to whip up something tasty, so I hope you guys are hungry. As everybody's just like, alright, sounds good. As we now cut over to Mizukami's Squad 9. And yeah, I think we all know who's in Mizukami's squad at this point, because they're probably like the third, maybe even the second most important squad during all of this. I mean, they've had a lot of focus on them. But we see Mizukami's looking through, and he's just like, what the heck's all this stuff about? As all of a sudden, we see the operator, Kon, is like, hey, something's wrong, isn't it? Did something catch your eye on the thing there? And Mizukami's is like, no, nothing really happened. And everybody sort of just looks at him like, come on, you can tell us. And she's like, fine, alright. And he's like, so remember how I said the goal for today was to be about 800 points ahead of second place? Well, check out the actual gap, as we see that Kaisho actually mentions that it is a gap of a little shy of 1,100 points. So about 300 points above where they were wanting to hit their target. And Troy is just like, man, it's even better than we hoped, right? And Mizukami is like, yeah, which is all good, but Kodera's squad took 4th in the battle sims today, right? And they're all like, yeah, they did. What do you mean by that? And he continues just saying, that's more wins for them than I thought, since that put my estimate about 3 wins or less. And everybody's like, well, what does that mean? And Arafune starts to speak up, just being like, well, even though Kodera's squad won more points than expected, our lead over them grew even wider, oddly enough. Meaning that they somehow got extra points they weren't exactly expecting. And pretty much, they're like, that's long short of the whole idea. As Kasho speaks up again, it's like, so maybe is it possible that they spent more time strategizing for the battle sims and couldn't put as much effort into the assignments? And they're like, yeah, that could be one plausible idea. And Cone brings up another idea, just saying like, or perhaps Toroya's actions had earned her special approval from the A-ranked judges. And they're like, hey, that could be it. As Toroya makes a little note of, what actions are we talking about? We all know, we read the series. But we now see that Mizukami's now just thinking to himself, not saying anything out loud. He's just like, maybe I'm just overthinking it, but this feels off. I better keep this way in mind. As we now cut over to Kodera Squad 6, the people who we were all just hearing about. As we see what's going on with them, as Kodera's just like, man, after 3 days of battle sims, we earned more points than Mizukami's squad. That's a huge thing for us. And let's see, there's Squad 6, let me open up my book. Who is this guy? Oh yeah, that's right, it's Yuta Miura, the attacker from the Katori squad. And he's just like, and Miura's just like, especially in light of their commanding lead through day 2, And Okudera is also here, and he's just like, well, it looks like your plan to share all the info worked like a charm, Kodera. And Kodera's just like, yeah, even though it feels like Sua had me dancing in the palm of his hand, as Katora now speaks up, is like, given the point difference, there's a decent chance that we can come out on top. And Kodera's just like, yeah, first place could very well be with this site. And at this point, everybody's like, okay, what are you thinking? Because we just learned about this 300-point gap, and there's like 1,100 points in between the two squads. What's going on here? And we see that the operator, that's what they're called, Rakuda, is just like, but there are no more universal assignments after today. And Kodera's just like, to some extent, unless we submit the delegated assignments starting tomorrow, our score won't really reflect reality. As Okudera's like, so you want us to submit the ones we finished during the work hours? And Kodera's just like, I think that's a good idea. And Kodera's like, in that case, we're going to be keeping the same primary strategy of picking up points however we can. So everybody's just like, got it. As we cut over to the monitor room where we see some A-rings. We see Yonea, the spear dude who fights with Miwa Squad. And we also see Miwa here. That's pretty cool. And pretty much Yonea is just like, come out on top. They still have over 1,000 points to make up. And he's like, do they really have what it takes? And Miwa's just like, it's very possible. And he's pretty much now going to explain. He's like, earlier today, Kodera Squad took pics of delegated assignments. And tomorrow, they intend to tackle all of those problems. They've been saving those up for the final day, at which point they plan to submit them all at once. So throughout the entire day, pretty much what they've been doing is working on delegated assignments, but they haven't submitted any of them, showing that 300-point gap is probably because they were working and hadn't submitted yet. So tomorrow they will spend the time to submit all of the points to sort of give this faux lead. So maybe on the next day, Mizukami Squad won't work as hard, and because of that, they'll be able to come in and overtake them, while Mizukami's squad sort of got semi-tricked by Kodera Squad. Yonea speaks up some more and is like, huh, no kidding. So they're way further ahead, so the score isn't really a reality. He's like, that's a sick plan, Shohei, because of course we know Kodera is also a part of Miwa Squad, so they are all teammates together. So now here we just sort of look to the other side of the table where Yonea and Miwa are to see the other two members of Miwa Squad sitting there, the operator Rin Tsukumi, and also just another person, Toru Narasaka. So they're all also both sitting here, and Tsukumi sort of starts to speak up, just being like, Shohei, you don't normally show as many guts on my squad, and she sort of just says he must be the type to rise to the occasion when put into a position of responsibility. And Narasaka is like, yeah, without a doubt, sooner or later he'll be leading a squad of his own, which is pretty cool because it's pretty cool when you understand they're both in Miwa Squad, because I don't know about you guys, but whenever I sort of look at many World Trigger characters, I can't remember where they're from, so I actually had to come in and look up where these two characters were actually from, and knowing that they are in actually Miwa Squad, it puts a lot more just showing that, yeah, Miwa cares about all of the, not Miwa, but the whole squad cares about each other, and it looks like Kodera will be going to a position of management, so at the end of the story, he may be, I don't know, like one of the developers of Border. Who really knows at this point? But at this point, we do our last cut around for the chapter as we go to Ninomiya Squad A, and we get a little shot of a phone just saying that it's 12:30 or 22:30 on my bad. So it's pretty much just like 10:30 at night. It's getting very close to the end of the day. And first thing we see is that Arafune is here, and he's just like, he's going to address everybody. It's like, hey everybody, I know it's early, but I think we should call tonight. And Ninomiya is like, very well, we can. It's Azuma, actually. Yeah, it's Azuma. I don't know why I said Arafune, but no, this character's Azuma. It is Azuma. Let me just get that corrected right there. But Azuma's just like, hey, tonight's your night in the capsule bed, Amatori, and Chica's like, yep, sounds good. And Azuma's just like, hey, and be careful not to bump your head whenever you wake up. As we see that he sort of did that and felt a lot of pain, as Chica's just like, alright, I will, thank you. And she's sort of looking at everybody and just like, looking really happy. I sort of like to know how unkept her hair is compared to how it normally is, maybe just showing how the sort of distress she went through throughout the day. And as she's saying goodnight to everybody, she's like, good work today, everyone, and everybody's like, yeah, to you too. And as everybody's walking away, Chica calls to Emma and is like, hey, Yuzuru, I'm really going to step it up tomorrow. Anyway, good night. As Emma's like, good night, obviously blushing, as we cut over to the room where we learn that Emma is sleeping tonight with Ninomiya. They are in the shared double bedroom because, of course, if you don't remember, the sort of whole bed schedule setup is that there's the operator's room where the operator is sleeping and doing all that sort of thing in their own special room. You have the capsule bed and then a room with a singular bed and a room with 2 beds. And of course, everybody has to spend a night in the capsule bed, and the rest of the rooms really don't matter too much. But we sort of get the thing that Emma's like, I'm sharing a 2-bedroom with this guy. It's kind of intense, not in a fun way. As Emma's just here like, God. As Ninomiya actually calls over to Emma and is like, hey, Emma, there's no special assignment today, but who can say what tomorrow will bring? Keep on your toes. And Emma's just like, is this guy being fucking serious doing all this shit? And he's like, I can't, I hate him. Who was thinking all of this? And sort of just scowling at Ninomiya the whole time. But at this point, Ninomiya speaks up and is like, hey, what? You have something to say? If you've got something, we'll just go and spit it out. And Emma's is like, do you ever think that maybe bedtime isn't the right moment to ramp up all of the pressure? How can I sleep after that? And he's just like, the way you talk to people, it's like you don't consider their feelings at all. Anyway, so short and snappy with that blank look on your face. That leads to the issues with Amatori today. Maybe you should be a little bit more considerate whenever you speak. You don't need Ozma to help you communicate. Mind you, this isn't me to grunt saying this as Captain. I'm giving my objective take one human being to another. So he goes on this massive rant, and Ninomiya's reaction is just to sigh out and sort of just say nothing. As Emma's is like, oh, what? That's your big answer? A big old sigh? Look at that. Just really giving Ninomiya a bunch of sass. As Ninomiya, I just have to imagine, looks straight over at him and is just like, if all of this was on your mind, why didn't you speak up? And Emma's like, what? But Ninomiya is like, you didn't have to wait for Ozma to step in. You're welcome to give Amatori aid all on your own. Do you think that I'm the only one to blame for Amatori's troubles today? As Emma's just like, what? As Ninomiya just continues saying, how is someone meant to feel when suffering loss after loss, watching their friend just sit there scowling in silence? Anyone would start panicking, and Emma's like, it's not like that. As he sort of thinks to what Chica said earlier to him, is like, I'm gonna really step it up tomorrow. And Emma's sort of just a little alarmed by this. As Ninomiya just continues, he's like, Amatori will be fine. I plan to say what I did today at some point during the test, whether in regards to the battle sims or not. But the problem is you. And Ninomiya sort of turns this all around back on Emma, going, here's my objective take, from one human being to another. I won't mince my words, I'll even give you a facial expression, just as you requested. As it really doesn't look like he's changed his facial expression, just giving this same scowl towards Emma, but he's just like, do you think your sniping talents alone will get you to the away mission? When Amatori was failing, all you could do was glance in my direction with a look that seemed to say, somebody do something to help her. And Emma's like, wait, he noticed all of that? And Ninomiya is just like, you truly believe that there's a seat on the mission for a person like you, a person who would do that? And he's like, Amatori said that she wants to carry on her duties herself. He's like, so what are your duties exactly? Well, Emma, care to explain? And Emma's just even more just getting bombarded by all of these things Ninomiya is saying. He's just like, Ninomiya just continues going like, the sniper hits a target in battle? Can you think of nothing else that you should be trying to doing? Or do you at least plan to keep coasting to be the best little junior agent? You need to wise up and realize that only flies with Hatahara and Kagiura squad. As just saying that him being like the little just kid who's the best little agent won't fly with any of them. As Emma's just like, he's like, there it is, that's exactly what's wrong with you, everything like I've been saying. Like, I've got the picture up to now. It's pretty clear why Hatahara quit Border. She quit because you suffocated her. For your high and mighty self-righteous attitude. You laid her in her incisive way because she just couldn't shoot people. Hatahara gave up on away missions because of you. As he's sort of like pointing at Emma and like, I don't know if I'm being able to say it across, but Emma is pissed at this point, just pointing at Ninomiya, yelling at him. And he's just like, even when she had all the talent in the world, and more of a reason than anyone to go on these away missions, as Ninomiya just stops him. He's just like, Hatahara, she hasn't given up on a thing. And it was just alarming. He's like, what are you talking about? As Ninomiya just says, Hatahara is in the neighborhood. And that's where we end the chapter. Now, I think the beginning of this chapter is almost like any other World Trigger chapter that we've really been getting in a while. It's really just more of that battle sim stuff. But really, whenever we cut over to Ninomiya's squad, I think this chapter gets 100% better. I truly love the confrontation that both Ninomiya and Emma have here. Because while I feel like, in a way, Ninomiya does know his own flaws, I know that he is really built up to just be a dick and an asshole, but Ninomiya, more than anybody, probably knows his flaws and knows that all this is going on. And the way that Emma sort of gives him comeuppance, but then Ninomiya just spouts all that back at Emma, just giving it back the same way that he just took it from him, is just a really clean way to doing it. And to eventually just to have Emma learn, wait, Hatahara's in the neighborhood. And this may be another thing that'll help Emma sort of stack up, because at this point, I think it's almost guaranteed, yes, Emma is going on the away mission. Now, to like cut over to other people that we've seen, I don't really think anybody from Mizukami Squad is going to be going on the away mission. I think that that's really just their take, is to have it sort of be here and now, and sort of, they will be very important people in the history of war. They'll be managers, like same thing with Kodera. I don't think any of them are really going to be going on the away mission, but I can definitely see Ninomiya and Emma, Ozma, and Chica all going on the away mission, and this is probably going to be the way that Chica sort of gets this comeuppance and gets told that, hey, here's maybe a reason you should be fighting for, and it's going to be really interesting where the whole conflict goes from here. A detail that I didn't really mention while I was talking about it is, whenever this heated argument's going on between the two of them, like, I wonder if these walls are thick enough, like, did anybody else hear it? Because, I mean, they're just yelling at each other, yapping back and forth, and, well, I think, to begin with, it's like a normal conversation with, like, Ninomiya, but whenever Emma gets agitated, I'm sure that he's just yelling as loud as he can, so I'm wondering if Ozma will maybe hear something like this. If I'm not mistaken, the capsule bed is soundproof, so it may make sense to why Chica may not be able to hear it, so that would probably be a good thing in terms of the series, and probably the operator, which, I don't remember who the operator is right now of Ninomiya Squad. Oh yeah, it's Rin Kagami. Oh, how could you forget? But I also don't think that she will really care to know. So it's going to be interesting if Ozma gets brought into this whole idea, and it's not just Ninomiya and Emma. And, I mean, what precautions could this have for Emma learning this? So, anyway, that's really all I have to say. This is a really solid chapter of World Trigger. I mean, it is 25 whole pages. It's a lot longer than your normal chapter. And so let's see when the next chapter is coming out, because I don't know if it is confirmed that we will be getting a chapter in August or not. Now, I'll just have to wait on my computer to do all of its loading down. I'm pretty sure in August, though, we are getting the 25th volume of World Trigger published in English, so that's something to look out for. But yes, it does look like August 3rd, 2023, we will be getting our next World Trigger chapter, so that's pretty fun. But yeah, again, just a great World Trigger chapter, and hey, if you enjoy, that's a word, this World Trigger chapter review, I have many others on the channel. I think I started in, like, the beginning of this year for, like, I think it was, like, chapter 227 and 228 or something like that, so I've got back to there for all these World Trigger chapters being reviewed by yours truly. Who would have thunk? I don't have anybody else I know who likes World Trigger, so I hope you guys do. But I also do a lot of more anime and manga videos here on the channel, specifically talking about like stuff like Oshinoko, Tenmaku Cinema, and really whatever I want to talk about. Bleach is finally back, so I'm going to be talking about the anime adaptation of that as it comes out. So, yeah, I don't really have too much to say, so if you like this, please comment, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And yeah, this was a great World Trigger chapter. We are 32 parts into the away mission test. I wonder if we're going to be able to get to, I don't know, like, I mean, we may be able to break 40. Probably 70, in World Trigger. So, without further ado, I don't have too much else to say. And yeah, this is going to be Glowplasma231 out.